What's going on, trader? And welcome back to my YouTube channel and another YouTube video. So on this morning's video, unfortunately, I was supposed to put this video out yesterday. That was the initial plan, but I was unable to do so. So I said, let me put it out today. We'll find our feet in terms of framework and how it's going to work for the weekly program and uploads and stuff like that. But anyway, let's get straight into the video for this morning. Before I get into that video, remember, I am not qualified nor am I licensed to offer financial investment or trading advice. Everything I speak about on these videos is purely my own opinion. All right. I do not recommend any specific trade. I do not recommend any specific action. So if you do take trades with live funds, ensure that you do it with capital you are willing to lose, or risk, right? Risk capital that you are willing to lose. Because, I mean, it's risky out here, man. We're just trying to eat. So let's get straight into it. Let's go from the beginning. I mean, let's follow the normal framework that we generally do. So I think let's move over to the dollar index. If I can get to that screen, that would be awesome. Okay. While I try to get the screen open up. So we're going to speak about, there are two things that I need to speak about today as well on today's video, which was supposed to be part of yesterday's video, but we were unable to do it. So one of the things that I needed to speak about is the mentorship, right? So the amateur mentorship is open. So on the back of this video, I think in the description of this video, what I'll actually do is I'll drop the link for the web form that you basically apply through, right? So it's the application form. You go on there and you fill in the necessary information that's required, nothing too sensitive. And once you've done that, you basically submit the form, and we've basically attached a bit of an incentive as well. And the back of that, or should I say a prize, right? So we've attached a prize to the back of that. And that is basically access to a group, right? So we're going to create a group which you'll basically have access to. And on this group, we'll basically be sharing trade ideas, setups, analysis, chart analysis, price action, case studies, and all of those good content as well, which I'll most likely at some point also start putting on the YouTube channel as well. But for now, we'll make it exclusive to that group. So once you fill in the application form, the link for the group will be attached on the back of the application form. And once you submit it, you'll be able to have that link and join that group and take advantage of those services. So that's one of the things that I wanted to speak about, right? So the mentorship obviously runs for, and I don't want this to be a promo video, so I'm just going to speak about this very quickly, right? I don't want this to be about promoting anything, right? But anyway, the mentorship is a lifetime mentorship with a 1 year lessons. So on a weekly basis, I do a lesson with you one-on-one for a year, and then thereafter it's obviously lifetime mentorship. So any support that's required, any updates on content and stuff like that is all done with you. Always sent to you alternatively. So that's basically the lifetime mentorship. So if you're interested in something like that, just make sure, check out the link in the description, and you can fill in that application and I'll get back to you. Unfortunately, I only take 5 people, and this is not to create some sort of scarcity or anything like that. It makes sense, right? Because I have to do a weekly lesson. So it makes sense to take 5 people, then I can simply do like 1 lesson a day, because it is really draining, right? And it's very demanding because I go through quite a lot on those sessions. So it only makes sense that I can do 5 people. So that way I can do Monday to Friday, right? So I only take 5 people in every mentorship cycle. If I do another mentorship cycle, then it'll most likely be in around July next year. So with that being said, there will also be 1 free spot that I will be giving up on the mentorship as well, right? So at no charge, 1 person will get free mentorship, and you'll get the same thing as everybody else, which is 1 year of classes as well as the lifetime mentorship as well. So that will be for free for 1 person. All you need to do that is the very same thing. Just go up there, get into that application and fill in the relevant information. There's a few questions there which I'm very interested in what your answers might be. Dependent on those things, I will then obviously select 1 person. and we will basically hit you up and let you know about how that's going to go down. Right, cool. So those are the two things that I needed to speak about before I get into today's video. So let's get right into it and let's talk about some charts. So I'm going to start, right, and I'm basically going to draw on here because I haven't looked at these charts all week, if I'm being honest. I'm trading one specific chart this week, which is volatility 10, and that's why all of my updates have been on that, because I'm just trading that specific chart this week. So looking at here, right? So we've looked at our weekly chart early in the week, and we were able to identify whatever information we've taken from it. We've identified our weekly range based on the fact that price was obviously in a downtrend. This was the last swing high that broke this low, that created this low, right? So this is our last bearish swing to the downside. If the market breaks above this high, then it's bullish. If it breaks below this low, then it is bearish. So what can we see here? The market came back up and formed a lower high here. So it's still a bearish market, right? But what has it done? It's failed to create a lower low below that low in there, right? So sorry, I just like doing too much. So it failed to create a lower low in here. It created a lower high, right? So that's a lower high, but it failed to create a lower low, right? So this is telling us that there's a depletion of momentum to the downside in here, and we should most likely expect this market to, at minimum, come back to this weekly high again, at minimum, right? Could break through, could keep going up, but at minimum, we're expecting it to come back up into that weekly high. Let's move on to the daily chart. Remember, the purpose of today's video is simply a midweek, right? The goal was to do it on a Wednesday, and most likely, if I choose to proceed with it, I will do it on a Wednesday every week on a Wednesday morning. So you get this information and you're able to, use it in terms of doing your research on your charts, going and having a look at your charts and seeing what you see, if you need to make any changes to any of the demo trades that you're taking or whatever it is, right? So looking at here on the daily chart, we can see, okay, so this is their weekly low. We've got it highlighted in here, right? We can see price came as coming into that weekly low. It hit 3 times to the downside in there. Market structure break. So this was the last lower low that was created in here, and then price pushed up, and then we'll consider this one lower high, right? So we'll consider this as one because there isn't a candle close above this high that was created here. So this is just one, right? So price came down, created a lower high, and then it broke this lower high to the upside here. So this lower high here was broken to the upside. So that's telling us bullish, right? On the weekly, we can see a depletion of bearish momentum. When we come down to the daily, as we look around that previous weekly low, we can see that price has sort of bottomed out in here, and just recently it's given us a candle close to the upside, right? So now what we're looking at is we're looking at this price most likely continuing. If it breaks above this high, then it's most likely going to continue to the upside, and like I said, back into this weekly low. So we know that we're looking for upside momentum. Like I said, bullish week for dollar index this week. And as you can see, Monday we came down into this area here, I believe. Yeah, Monday we came down into this area. Tuesday, we rejected it. We rejected this area. Wednesday, we began to go up, right? So Tuesday, we gave us a bullish. Wednesday, we came and retested in here and we've gone up. But either which way, we've had a bullish week on the dollar so far. So looking at this now, we've got this swing from here to there, which broke market structure. So that's our range. Price breaks above this high in here, then we'll be looking for more moves to the upside. So dropping down to the 4-hour chart, let's just see what we've got here on the 4-hour chart. We've basically got this coming off this daily low, right? I don't need to focus on anything else on this side of the chart because I've already mapped my range on the daily chart, and I know that I'm in a bullish market, so I'm looking for moves to the upside based on this range. If I see anything, my first target is obviously here. Price breaks to the upside, and then I keep going to the upside again, obviously looking for more opportunities. Now we can see that price came down to here, right? This was obviously a pullback, right? After this impulse to the upside, this was a pullback to the downside, and then now we look for something like that back to the upside. As you can see, once it completed this 1, 2, 3 hits to the downside. It's once it breaks market structure here, right? We'll look for some sort of a pullback into here and then take a trade up into there. So that's something that I would be looking at, right? Once it breaks above here, then we continue with the plan from there. So looking at this now, we can now map another range in here and understand what's happening with this market. So we look at in here. If we look there, actually, I'm not going to draw that on, sorry, because I'm not really going to use it. So I'll basically map out this range in here, right? Why? Because this was the last lower low after this break of structure here to the downside, creating this lower high, which failed to make a lower low at this point. Instead, just spiked at a false breakout, and it's now going up. As soon as it breaks above this high, we are immediately bullish now on the 4-hour chart. So we can drop down to the 30-minute chart, look for a retest into somewhere here, and then take this market up into that area there. Obviously, that is what I would be looking at going forward. Looking at what's happening right now, I'm not really sure if, let's just have a look. Let's see if we can get the current 4-hour candle seems to be rejecting. If it does reject, it will still come into here, somewhere into around this area, and then it will still push up, right? All we need to see really in order for us to now be looking for trades, and when I say us, I'm talking about what I would do personally, is I would be looking for a break. The moment it breaks and closes above here, I'm geared to now go into the lower time frame and look for an entry. Ideally, as if you've been following my trading, you know that ideally I would have already entered down here, right? And I would be looking for a re-entry when the price comes around here. And then I'll be looking for another re-entry when price comes here. And I'll just keep going to the upside in that extent, all right? But I like to get in as the move just starts. So that's it for dollar index. As I said, bullish week on dollar index, and we're seeing that happening very, very strongly so far for the week. So my expectation would be to see it continue for the week. However, if we get a rejection here, let me just pan in so you can see it clearly. So if we do get a rejection here right now, based on, oh wow, based on the current candle close, if we get a rejection at that point in there, then I'll be looking for a pullback into somewhere around here, right? And then I'll be looking for something to the upside again. However, if price breaks below this, right, then I'll most likely expect it to come below this daily low and then go to the upside. But I'm not really expecting that at the moment, but hey, anything can happen right now, right? But however, we do have our first break in market structure here, and then we have price pulled back down here, and then it broke market structure again to the upside. So right now, based on what I see, all of the pullbacks have happened. This market is just going to keep going to the upside from now on. However, if it does pull back, it's not, I would not expect it to break below this level in here. I would expect it to pull back at maximum down into here and then go up. Cool. So looking at Euro USD, remember, the reason I look at Euro USD and dollar index, those are my two focus pairs when it comes to focusing on foreign exchange related instruments. They are very, very strongly correlated, right? Retail traders love correlation. So they are very strongly correlated. So I love using them, and I always emphasize them on these videos. So if you haven't had a look at it, go do some research as well and have a look at the chart and see how strongly they correlate, right? So looking at the weekly chart on here, we've obviously seen, okay, we've got a break of market structure to the upside here, another break of market structure to the upside here. We're in a bullish market at the moment. However, what do we need to see? We need to see a pullback into around this levels in here, into around these levels here, and then we need to see it continue to the upside. But we are obviously in a bullish market. Our target, our long-term target will be this long-term high in there, right? That's very straightforward what I see happening on this market. So let's talk a little bit about what's happening right now. Obviously, this was the last break to the upside in here. Price then pulled back to there, right? If we look at this range logically, this would be our range, right? Because that's the last range that broke to the upside. The reason I highlighted this, right, is because I'm expecting this to be the high that it creates. However, what it can do is it can pull back slightly and go above and then come down, right? But for now, from here, based on how price is rejecting right now, I am expecting to see some sort of downside from here, right? Coming back into this low. Let's move on to the daily chart. Looking at the daily chart right now, I would actually be more prone to say that price will come back into this low and then go up, right? So we have to keep a very close eye. This is currently very, very strange the way it's moving, right? So coming off this weekly low, we've got a break in market structure forming this new high and this new low, right? Did this next move break market structure here? Yes, it did. So this was our new high. This was our new low. This was our new high, right? After it broke that market structure. So looking at this range, we're looking at that from there to there, right? So we're looking at price coming down into around here, or at lowest back into this low, and then trying to come back up into this previous high here. Right, so that's what I would be looking at on the daily chart. So looking at the daily chart right now, based on how price is rejecting right here, we would actually be looking for some downside here, right? Because we're looking for upside on the dollar index. It makes sense for us to be looking for some downside into here, into around here, right? And then we look for some upside back up into here before this market continues and does another pullback again into around here, and then moves up to the upside again. But obviously that's long-term projection. We're trying to project now for the remainder of the week, which is just the next 2 days. So now we drop down to the H4 chart. As we come down into the H4 chart, we can clearly see, all right, so this was our daily low that broke market structure there to the upside. So that's our high, right? If price breaks to the upside, it's most likely going to continue up. If price breaks to the downside, it's most likely going to continue down. What we have here, price broke to the upside, false breakout, came back, retested. So what is most likely going to happen here? Most likely we're going to see continued moves to the downside, right? Coming back into this low here, coming back into this low in here, right? Why? You can also see here, we tried to break to the upside, we formed a level there. We tried to break back to the upside, we formed a level here. We could look at this as a high, right? And then that as a false breakout. And then now we can look at this as a break of market structure to the downside. So this is now telling us that after this pullback, we're most likely going to just see this market trickle to the downside towards here. Very simple, very straightforward. That is what I'm expecting currently on dollar index and on Euro USD. Let's move on to the next chart, which is on the synthetic indices. Now, as I said, on the synthetic indices, I'm only trading one chart this week at the moment, and that is the volatility 10, because I'm loving the way the chart's moving at the moment. However, we did speak about volatility 100, seeing bearish momentum coming back into this weekly low, right? We've got this weekly low, which is the last low that broke to the upside and broke this market structure in here, right? So very straightforward. I'm bearish on volatility 100 right now. Short-term bearish, but bearish nonetheless, right? Coming off here. Sorry, actually long-term bearish, my mistake. Long-term bearish, but I am bearish, right? So when we drop down to the daily, now we're looking at coming off this weekly low, we can see that structure was broken. We've got higher highs forming to the upside, nice strong momentum to the upside in here. And that is telling us that there isn't a depletion of this bullish momentum. There's still bullish momentum in this market. So most likely what we're going to be seeing is next week's candle is next week's candle. When I say next week's candle, I'm talking about the weekly candle, is most likely going to pull to the upside, give us a rejection, whether it's at this previous high in here or before that, and then it's going to trade to the downside from there, right? So I'm expecting a pullback. Hence, when I look at the daily chart, I can see mapped on this range that we've got from this low, we broke market structure here that formed this high in here, right? The reason that I now moved up into here is because from this low here, we did break market structure here again to the upside here, right? So we've got that as our daily swing. That's our range. This push here has broken structure to the downside, but that doesn't necessarily mean we're bearish, right? All that tells me is I was expecting price to come down into around here, right? And then go back up into around that area. So looking at it right now, I'm looking to see some sort of rejections happening, and then I'll be looking for a buy to the upside. Actually, just a strong break of market structure there. So we'll leave it there, right? So coming down to the H4 chart on volatility 100, there's our break coming off the daily low, right? That's showing us the last of that bullish momentum. coming off that daily low in there. We've got a nice push to the downside. Notice that from this big momentum that came into the market here, did nothing in terms of switching momentum in the market. It did nothing in terms of switching the trend in the market, right? We would expect, ideally, you would expect a big move like this would ideally go straight below the lows, and then you would tell yourself, okay, let's continue to the downside because I'm bearish on the weekly. But as you can see, we are not seeing that happening on here, which tells me that we would most likely see what? A pullback up into that area, and then we'll see that bearish move to the downside. Hence, I say the weekly chart will open, the weekly candle will open, trade to the upside for next week before it trades to the downside, and we have a sustained move going on from there to the bearish side of this market. Looking at the momentum in here as well, yes, we did break this low, right? Yes, we did pull back and we did break this low, but this low was of no significance because it did nothing on the side of the chart, right? So we have to look at this whole move as one. So this whole move becomes one move to the downside. So we're looking at that as a move to the downside. We'll expect a pullback, a breakback maybe to the downside, and then a push, continued push. Maybe after this pullback, we'll get a continued push to the downside, or we could get a pullback, push, pull back again, and then that drop. All right, so that's what I'm currently looking at, and this is on now the H4 chart. So after we've broken the structure, let's look at the swing. So from here to here, that is the last swing that traded below this daily low in here. Right, so we could also even look at this if we want to identify where, if I were to looking to take a buy trade here, I would simply do something like this. Put my FIB, drop my FIB on there, and then mark my pivot point. Once I mark my pivot point, the appropriate color, and then I'll remove that. And that is around where I'm expecting the market to come bump into, and then give us that pullback to the upside, perhaps coming back into this, well, coming back into this high here. And if it wants to go higher, coming back into this previous high to give us maybe a false breakout and then drop to the downside. Right, so that's what I'm currently looking at on volatility 100. Let's move on to volatility 10. This is a small account that I'm currently building at the moment, guys. I will be posting it on YouTube again soon. I remember I started a YouTube account build challenge. So once I get this account up to around $50-something, I think that last account was on, then I'll continue the account build challenge. So there's a lot of content that's also coming up as well. So it's about to get, like I said, from July onwards, I was going to be focused on putting out content on this channel. So we're going to be doing that going forward. Looking at this now, let's look at the daily chart. So we've got our daily chart up into there. Sorry. Let's look at our weekly chart. Why would we start on the daily on this chart? All right. So looking at volatility 10, we've got this market obviously broke market structure here to the downside, created this low, broke market structure, created this low, broke market structure, created this low, right? Is that a break? Yeah, that is a break. Broke market structure and created that low to the downside. So what would you expect? Another lower high, which means respecting this previous high and then going to the downside if this market is bearish. However, what did it do? Instead of doing that, it broke to the upside, giving us a push to the upside, telling us, okay, now we're bullish on this market. So I'm looking for a pullback into this low, right? Whether it is a pullback to create a higher low and go higher, right? Or a pullback to break this low and go lower. Ultimately, I do see price trading down from around here, right? Hence, I've been holding sells. I'm currently in sells all the way from the beginning of here. So I'm overall bearish for the next couple of weeks on volatility 10. Let's look at, so what we've basically done here is we've mapped our range. So this was the last low that broke this market structure and broke this market structure. So this was the last high that was created as well once this candle is confirmed. So looking at the daily chart, right, coming off here, we can see that break of market structure to the upside, creating this high here, creating this high after breaking that market structure, another break, breaking that high, which that says what? Our new range is that range. Price broke to the upside, which means what? Our new range is that range in there, right? So we've now mapped this range here, right? We know that if price breaks below here, we're bearish. If price breaks above there, we're bullish. But even inside of the range as well, we're also bullish. Why? Based on what information we've gotten in here. All of this information, break of structure, all of that stuff telling us that that was a bullish market. But we cannot forget about the fact that we're in a sensitive zone on the weekly chart where we're expecting downside. So what I'm currently expecting is a false breakout to the downside here, and then a pullback to the upside on this market, maybe back into this previous high, right? Back into this previous high perhaps, and then the market is going to come back down into this weekly low here. All right, so looking at this daily chart, we can see, okay, we're in that range. Let's drop down to the H4 so we can talk about the next couple of days on this market. As you can see, I am trading this market very closely. You can see I've got a very clean analysis on here. What I'm looking at is coming off the daily high that we've created, right? Where's that daily high? Let's go back and show you. So looking at this daily high, that's the daily high that we created. The last high that was created after market structure was broken here to the upside, right? That's the last high, that's the daily high. So coming off that daily high, we've got a break of market structure to the downside, a pullback, another break of market structure to the downside, a pullback, and another break of market structure to the downside. Remember, we're not going to say now with this information that we are in a bearish market. Why? Because this is not an impulsive push to the downside. Notice how quickly this market moved up here and how it's moving like that to the downside. So this is generally what? Impulse and a correction, and you'll expect another impulse directly after that. Whether it breaks the high to the upside or just comes back and respects the high is completely non-related right now. We don't really care about that. We just know that we're going to the upside from there. So looking at this right now, I am bullish on this market here. I'm looking for a buy up from, say, here into around there, or from down here into up there. One of those two, whichever one takes place, that's the buy that I'm going to be looking for, right? So that's it on this chart. Moving on from there, let's talk about volatility 75. Volatility 75 is actually the chart that I'm paying the least attention to right now, even though it is respecting my analysis very nicely. I was looking at this swing here as the weekly swing after breaking this market structure. We did identify this demand zone in here, which I've been speaking about since before all of this happened, right? I've been speaking about this demand zone. Go back and check a couple of the videos that I've already put up on the channel, and you'll see that we've been speaking about that as a demand zone and expecting price to move upwards from there. So coming off that demand zone, we can see price created this low. This was the last daily range. Why? Because we broke market structure to the downside. We broke all of these lows to the downside. So price has now done what? With yesterday's candle, we've now got a break of market structure to the upside. However, I am looking at this as not a bullish signal, right? But I'm looking at this as a sign that we will most likely come back down, right? So we might come back down into around this area here. No, that is absolutely wrong. So we'll most likely come back up into here and then perhaps go into there, give us a retest down here, and maybe continue up, or whatever it is that's going to happen after that. Remember, we're just trying to predict what's going to happen for the next couple of days, right? So perhaps today's candle might close bullish, right? And then we'll see some sorts of rejections, and then we'll most likely expect this market to come back down into here for earlier next week and trade up from around there going forward. But obviously, we'll cover that again on the video that I put up on Monday morning. So looking at here on the 4 hour, on the 4 hour, we've obviously got the last range that broke market structure will be this range here to the upside that broke market structure in there. So we will be expecting price to come back down into here, whether it is to break and go down further, or whether it is to retest and go up further from there. Either which way, we'll expect some sort of a pullback, right? So let's see what's happening. We've already got a nice strong rejection on the 4 hour chart, and we've got a nice strong bearish candle forming right now on the 4 hour chart. Actually, let me go down to the 30-minute. I just want to see something. Okay, that's a very nice, very nice. Right, so on the 30-minute, we've got this range here as well that broke structure to the upside. So once price breaks this to the low, we'll expect it to come back into this previous low. Once it breaks this previous low, then we'll expect that H4 setup to take place, which is what? Which is price trading back down into around this area here on the H4 chart, right? Cool. So that's it in terms of that. Remember, in the description of this video, I will be dropping the link for the mentorship application. If there's any queries or anything about that, you can drop it in the comments, hit me up on social media or something like that. Whatever works better for you, just do that. And I'll get back to you as soon as possible. But like I always say, until next time, it has been a pleasure as always to share with you guys. And I am wishing you a blessed and profitable remainder of the trading week, as well as a blessed weekend with your families. And I'll catch up with you guys on the next video.